Today, we're diving into one of the most incredible growth stories in Thailand's entire food industry. It's the story of Suki Tinoy and its amazing founder, Fern Nataman, who took one small restaurant and turned it into an absolute giant. So, let's get into it and figure out exactly how she pulled it off.
Let's just start with a number that kind of makes you do a double take. 7 billion baht. That's the annual revenue we're talking about here. To give you some perspective, that's well over 200 million US dollars. It's just a staggering amount of money.
And that really brings us to the big question, right? How in the world did a 25-year-old who had just left her day job build an empire this huge from just a single small shop? Well, let's find out.
To really understand this story, you've got to go back to the very beginning. This wasn't just some random idea that popped into her head. No, this was a dream that was born out of her family's own life in the restaurant business.
You see, Fern basically grew up in this world. She was always around her father's restaurant, learning the ropes, everything from costs to managing staff to quality control. So after she tried the corporate 9-to-5 thing for a bit, she realized it just wasn't for her. She felt bored, unchallenged. So at 25, she made a huge leap. She quit, dead set on building something for herself.
And this right here, this quote, was the philosophy that drove that whole decision. She really believed that if she just waited around until she was 30, her dream might just fade away. This became her mantra: not starting is the only way you can truly fail. Okay, so she had the passion and the drive to start, but now she needed the right idea. It wasn't enough to just open another restaurant. She needed to find a real, unmet need in the market, and boy, did she find one. So here's the brilliant insight. Fern looked at the Suki buffet market and saw two totally different worlds. On one hand, you had these cheap, small, street-side spots with kind of inconsistent quality, maybe no parking. On the other, you had the big, fancy, expensive brands inside shopping malls. There was this massive, empty space right in the middle. Her vision was to fill that gap.
And that led to her core promise, her value proposition, which is so simple but so powerful. Make every single customer feel like they got an amazing deal. She wanted to give them the food quality, the clean atmosphere, and the great service of a mall restaurant, but at a price that almost anyone could afford, starting at just 199 baht.
Look, having a great idea is one thing, but execution, that's everything. And Fern's approach, especially in those early days, was all about speed, action, and just being completely obsessed with what the customers were saying. This quote pretty much sums up her entire game plan. She even admitted she didn't spend forever on market research or some massive business plan. She was all about action. Get the idea out there into the real world, and then fix it and improve it based on what real people are telling you. And this really became what you could call the Tinoy method. It's a super agile 3-step cycle. First, you launch. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it out there. Second, you listen. And I mean really listen. She was the one reading every comment, talking to every customer. And third, you adapt. Right away. No waiting, no long meetings, no red tape. Just fast, smart changes. And let's talk about some real examples of this in action. Customers wanted a certain item, bam, it was on the menu the next day. They didn't like a sauce, it was gone. But probably the biggest change came from their opening hours. At first, they closed around 11 p.m., but people kept asking them to stay open later. So they tried 3 a.m. And then, seeing the crazy demand, they pushed it all the way to 5 a.m. That one move opened up a whole new world of customers, late-night workers, students, people who had nowhere else to go for a good meal. So, you've got a winning formula. You've got a system for making it better every single day. The next huge challenge is growth. How do you take one successful little shop and blow it up into a national powerhouse? Pretty early on, as the hype started building, she hit a classic fork in the road that a lot of founders face. Do you franchise to grow super fast, or do you keep total control and grow on your own terms? People were already knocking on her door with offers. Her answer was crystal clear. She said no. She turned down all of those early franchise offers. To her, protecting the brand's quality, making sure every customer had the same great experience, was way more important than growing fast. Her strategy for growth really rested on 3 key pillars. First, saying no to franchising was all about quality control. You just can't risk a franchisee cutting corners. Second, she centralized her systems, building a central kitchen to make sure the broth, the sauces, everything tasted exactly the same at every single branch. And maybe most important, she built her leadership from within, promoting staff who'd been there for years, who really understood the Suki Tinoy culture. So, what was the result of this very deliberate, controlled growth? Well, from just 2 branches in that first year, the growth has just been insane, leading to over 80 branches all over the country today. What an incredible ride.
So we've looked at the strategy, we've looked at the execution, but what about the person driving all of this? The truth is, the success of Suki Tenoy is completely tied to the unique mindset and just the relentless work ethic of its founder.
You know, people often call her a prodigy, a business marvel, but she shuts that down completely. For her, the answer is way simpler, way more direct. Her success didn't come from some miracle, it didn't come from luck, it came from pure, non-stop hard work. So what did that hard work really look like, especially at the start? Well, she figures that about 90% of her time, her energy, her focus, was poured directly into the business. She wasn't just some owner in an office. She was out there, serving tables, washing dishes. She was driving to the market at the crack of dawn herself. She did every single job in that restaurant.
Her whole leadership style is guided by a few core ideas. It's always about the customer, not the profit. It's about understanding that every single person on the team is crucial. And this one is my favorite. Despite building a 7 billion baht empire, she still says she thinks she's only a few % of the way to her full potential. She is never, ever satisfied.
And that kind of drive means she is far from finished. The next big goals on her horizon are to take the company public with an IPO and then to take the Suki Tenoy brand outside of Thailand and onto the world stage.
You know, we started this whole explainer with her founding principle, right? The idea that pushed a 25-year-old to leave her job and go after a dream. If you don't start, it will never happen. That was her day one. So after seeing this incredible journey, I guess the only question left to ask you is, what's your day one gonna be?